Hello YouTube, my name is Ryan Cohn, and over the last 12 months I've been running a successful Airbnb vacation rental. During this time I have earned the right as superhost, I've accumulated 50 plus 5-star reviews, and I've learned so much along the way. In this video I'd like to share with you how I picked the location for my Airbnb vacation rental, share with you some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, share with you exactly how much I've earned over the last 12 months, and lastly I'll tell you if I'd recommend for you to invest in your own vacation rental or not. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask that you do consider liking the video, turning the notification bell on so that you're notified of future content that I put out, and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. It also tells me what type of content you'd like to see from me in the future. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Picking the right location of a successful Airbnb is the first step in the Airbnb investing process. It can truly make or break your investment, so there should be a ton of thought that's put into this part of the process. For me, for example, this is my first investment in real estate, and I found myself getting caught up in the emotions and the excitement of making the investment. So if this is your first investment into real estate, be careful of that exact issue. For example, I went from looking at duplexes and properties located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to looking at more beachfront properties located in a more tropical location such as Florida or even Puerto Rico. The first problem with all these locations is that they're located across the country for me, which would make servicing them extremely difficult and would have required a ton of time and resources to service. If Airbnb was something that I was able to do full time, then investing in different parts of the country would make sense. But for someone such as myself, where I'm working a traditional 9-to-5 still, being able to take time out to go visit these locations and take the additional expense it requires to go visit them would have been a nightmare. And I'll tell you why. So the time, energy, and cost that it took to get our Airbnb up and running took multiple weeks. We were driving around all over the Bay Area, picking up furniture and bringing it back to our home and dropping it in the driveway. That took a lot of energy and time. So having to do that in a totally different state, in a place that I don't have a home base, would have been very challenging. Now, when you take into consideration having to visit the property, typically once a month is how often we're visiting our property. And this is due to checking on supplies, making sure the unit is being cleaned properly, that you're updating it with new furniture and technology, or if you want to install a ping pong table or you want to install a sauna. These are things that you have to consider, and it has to be within distance for you to be there and to help service. So if I was traveling 9 hours or a 5-hour flight across the country every month, it would be very challenging, and I don't think it would be something that, as your first investment in Airbnb, you would want to take on. The second challenge I found when investigating some of these cities across the country from me is that many of the cities, after further investigation, I realized they don't actually allow short-term rentals. I discovered that most of the West Coast in Florida, including cities like Tampa or St. Petersburg, they don't actually allow short-term rentals. So that made it pretty challenging. You might be able to get by purchasing a condo. These condos kind of have their own laws and regulations on short-term rentals that are separate from the city, but then you're looking at extremely high HOA fees that are almost $1,000 plus a month, and your dollar per square foot is going to be pretty pricey and doesn't really give you the best bang for your buck. Alternatively, I started looking into Puerto Rico. I was able to find some really cost-effective properties, great dollar per square foot, low dollar per square foot. The challenge with investing into a place like Puerto Rico is it really is another country. It's not really part of the United States. So many people there don't actually speak English, as their first language, or even English at all. So that makes it a little bit challenging to find a correct crew. Many of the high-end condos in San Juan that are right on the beach, which is really where you would want to invest, they've actually reversed their regulations on short-term rentals, making it so that you can't actually have a short-term rental in these buildings. They used to allow it, people flooded it essentially with short-term rentals, and then they banned it. So, you find people that are scrambling to make a return on their investment or, kind of resell it and try to make a profit. So that makes it challenging, and I'll tell you how I overcame this challenge. So after all of this research and months of scouring the internet and different locations to invest in across the United States, I found a tool that actually helped me do this research. It was called AirDNA. And if you haven't heard of AirDNA before, I highly recommend looking into it and using it for your research. What it allows you to do is compare different areas and neighborhoods, cities that you're looking at investing into, and it takes the data from existing Airbnbs. So you're able to see things like what is the average occupancy rate per month, what is the average daily rate, what is the monthly revenue, and you can even go as far as clicking on individual listings and seeing what that listing is able to generate on a monthly revenue basis. So it's extremely helpful. And by using this tool, I actually looked up a location that I used to actually vacation to with my family as a kid, and I've been more than a dozen times since being a young kid. My thinking is that by choosing a location that is close to me, is in a great location, has tons of stuff to do, is in a location where the prices of homes are pretty reasonable, that made sense. And it ticked all the boxes of what I was looking for mentally and what I was able to actually handle on a monthly basis, given that I'm working a 9-to-5 job. On top of all this, as I was looking into this investment, we were pretty much in peak COVID times. Most cities were shut down. You were having to wear, your mask everywhere. You weren't really able to eat inside still. So finding a location that was away from big cities really makes sense in a time that we're living in today. The reason being, people, when things are shut down, the only thing that people can really do is go outside and go explore nature. So the location that we chose is near a ski resort, about an hour out from the gate to Yosemite National Park. You're up in the pine trees. There's a few beautiful lakes within 10-20 minutes of our location. There's casinos, there's resorts, there's multiple bars that you can go out to that are across the street, and you have live music almost every weekend. So there's a ton of stuff to do in the area, and being that it is far from the cities, you're essentially pandemic proofing your property, and people will always want to get outside, take little weekend trips. And that's what we found is we're mostly getting people that are within a couple hours drive of our location, and they're going out, for a couple days at a time, maybe a week-long vacation, and just using it as a place to get away, from the hustle and bustle of the city. So in short, just make sure that you're doing your proper due diligence. First off, make sure that the city you're looking at investing in does allow short-term rentals. The last thing that you want to do is invest into the area and realize a month in that the city's going to shut you down. So first off, look into that. Secondly, you may want to consider purchasing in an area that is close to home. You never want to bite off more than you can chew, especially when it's your first time investing into a short-term rental. So I would recommend dipping your toes in first, getting familiarized with the process, how you're going to end up running this, who your team is, stuff like that. The more that you get comfortable with it, then you can look at investing into further places and, potentially taking something like this and turning it into a full-time job. Third, I would recommend investing near national parks. The reason being, you're essentially pandemic proofing your property. People are always going to want to visit national parks and go explore nature and get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Lastly, I would highly recommend using AirDNA to research the area you're looking at investing into. It'll rank the area with a letter, either A, B, or C, depending on the ranking, and you're able to start to compare other listings in the area and see, if you'd be able to compete with those or potentially blow them out of the water. So some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. One of the best tips that I've learned is to work smarter. And what I mean by that is, owning an Airbnb has been a ton of fun, but it has come with its own set of unique challenges and things that we've had to overcome to make our process better, make our lives a little bit easier. And one of the things that we've implemented is automating as much as you possibly can. There's a lot of work that goes into running an Airbnb. On top of having to respond to messages, respond to inquiries, take urgent calls if things are broken, if they're not able to access your property. There's also things like coordinating with your cleaning staff, making sure that they're arriving on time, that things are being cleaned appropriately, that you're visiting the property, all these things can add up, and it really turns it into a part-time job. And if you're not careful, it can become a full-time job. So automating as much of the process as possible has made our lives easier and really just simplifies the amount of day-to-day tasks that we have to handle. So we recommend implementing the following tools into your process and into your business. The first tool I recommend is Remote Lock. Remote Lock, if you've ever wondered about how people are going to access your property, and what happens if someone doesn't return the key? Well, remote lock allows you to essentially forget about those worries. Essentially what it is it assigns every guest their own unique access code to your property, and it's only available during the times of check-in and until they check out. So as soon as their checkout time is done, they're not able to really access the property again, meaning you're not gonna have people really trying to break in or stay longer than their stay. And it just helps you rest a little bit easier at night. With remote lock, we currently use the Schlage, I don't know how to pronounce it, Schlage, electronic door lock, and a Vera smart home. I wouldn't recommend that system, however. There's a few drawbacks with it. The Vera smart home has given us quite a few issues and doesn't really connect all the time to the smart lock, so I wouldn't recommend that. The other issue with remote lock is that it only integrates with Airbnb and it doesn't integrate with VRBO, which we have our listing on both in order to maximize bookings. So the next tool I'll mention does actually handle the smart lock capability now, and it's something I will be testing hopefully pretty soon, and I can report back to you guys as soon as we have a little bit more information on that. So the next tool we recommend is called Guestie for hosts. Guestie is essentially the bread and butter of what allows you to operate your Airbnb as autonomously as possible. You're able to set up check-in messages, check-out messages, reminders for people to leave reviews. It automatically reminds your guests for you. That way they're encouraged to leave a review for you as well. On top of that, you can also add your cleaning staff into Guestie. That way they're receiving reminders as soon as a new guest books. They're able to look into your calendar for your listing and see exactly when the check-in times and checkout times are. And it's really automated a lot of the communication that would have had to otherwise do manually. And for me personally, being the one that handles all that, it makes my life so much easier, and I don't know how I would have been able to do it without Guestie. So the last piece of software I'll recommend is called Price Labs, and you've probably heard of Price Labs before, but if you haven't, it's a really cost-effective tool that allows you to have a super sophisticated pricing structure for your Airbnb. And essentially what it allows you to do is you set a absolute low number. This is the lowest amount you're willing to accept on a daily basis. And then you set your base price, and then you set your highest price. And what it does is it goes through and creates a full 12-month calendar year, and every single day is customized based on the demand of your Airbnb in that area. And so, during the off season, you're gonna have your lowest prices, but on the weekends, it's gonna be a little bit higher. And then you go to your peak season, such as for us right now, most of our prices are in the highest tier. And that allows us to maximize our profit without having to go through and manually input, different prices every single day. So we love Price Labs, and I think it's helped us maximize our profits more than we would have been able to otherwise. So the next tip that I would recommend is installing a Ring camera for your property. People aren't partying at your property and essentially tearing your house to pieces. We're able to monitor people, make sure that they're not super loud past quiet hours, that they're not bringing pets onto the property, which we don't allow, that they're not having a ton of cars in the driveway and blocking the road, stuff like that. So it allows us to monitor the property. We also get snow at our property, so it's kind of nice to look in and see how much snow that we have. If we need to call snow removal service, and we're able to do that, and we don't have to ask the guests or bother other people. We can just simply check our camera and we're good to go. The next kind of bonus tip that I'd like to recommend is that you can also install a solar panel for your Ring camera and plug it directly into the Ring camera, and this will allow you to have a camera that never dies. Otherwise, if you install a Ring camera, it just operates off a small battery, and without the solar panel, it would die in about a month or two. So we installed a cheap solar panel, and now we never have to go up there and replace it, which has been awesome. My last recommendation is to go find yourself an amazing cleaning crew. Your cleaning crew can essentially operate as your property manager for you. And you'll be handling the day-to-day communication. At least that's what we do. We don't pay 10 or 20% a month to pay a property manager. Instead, we have our cleaning crew that goes in there and they report back to us if things are broken, if things are missing, if we're low on supplies. They do a lot of the property management aspects for us without having to pay that property management fee. Now, we have gone through a couple of bad cleaning companies, and we're actually on our third cleaning crew as it sits today. What I would recommend in order to find a good cleaning service is not actually going through a short-term rental cleaning company. It might sound good at first because they have experience and they'll promise you a same-day turnaround. A same-day turnaround is when a guest checks out in the morning and you have another guest checking out later or checking in later that day. And so the cleaner will come in that short period of time and clean the property. It causes a whole slew of headaches. You don't really have a ton of time to fix things if they are broken, and the cleaner typically isn't doing a great job. So these cleaning companies, they hire really low quality talent, just people that you don't really trust. And we've had a whole slew of issues, not to mention it's also more costly to go through one of these companies. So what we found is find yourself a typical house cleaner or maid, someone that just cleans houses for a living, someone that you would invite to your personal home to clean your house. And these people, they won't be able to do a same-day turnaround more often than not, but they will provide a very comprehensive cleaning service. You're paying them by the hour as opposed to a fixed flat rate, which you would pay a cleaning company to do. So we've been able to find an absolute rock star going this route. Our house is spectacularly cleaned and spotless every time we go and every time a guest goes. And this allows you to get better reviews, happier people that want to recommend your property to other friends and family. And overall, it's just a much more pleasant experience for you. Well, thank you for making it this far. In a moment, we'll be talking about exactly what everyone's come here for, which is how much I've made over the last 12 months with Airbnb. But before we get into that, if you are considering becoming an Airbnb host or making an investment into your first short-term rental, consider using my Airbnb referral link down below. When you get your first checkout, you'll be paid $40 from Airbnb. But additionally, it'll also allow me to monitor your first listing. I can actually go in there and see the pictures that you've uploaded, your descriptions, and I can do some research on your listing and give you feedback. So if that's something you're interested in, it's completely free to you. It just allows you to get some value and get a little money back from Airbnb. Without further ado, let's see how much I've made over the last 12 months. Alrighty, so what you're seeing here is actually a snapshot from Guestie for hosts. This is, again, that piece of software that I was referring to earlier that allows us to manage multiple different aspects of our short-term rental. Another cool aspect of it is it allows you to create reports on your income earnings on a monthly or a yearly basis. So we actually first listed our Airbnb back in August of 2021. And we had our first check-in August 27th, 2021. So this report is from August 27th, 2021 to the same date in 2022. During that period of time, you can see the gross amount that we have generated in total is $49,228.63. The net payout, which is the gross amount minus the platform service fee. So the platform service fee is a small percentage that Airbnb and VRBO charge us per reservation, and overall that platform service fee that we've paid them has been about $1,800 for the last year. So that means our net payout has been $47,417.26. Out of that, we've paid our cleaners a pretty hefty fee to be able to clean, and that cleaning fee has been $12,925 out of all the reservations that we've had. So our true net payout after cleaning fees are taken out is $36,303.63. Now, one other thing to note here, and you might be wondering, is in the breakdown section, you can see a couple of different listing names. One thing that's unique about our property and something you might want to consider is our property is actually a duplex, and that makes it so versatile, and I would highly recommend looking into a property that has a similar type of setup. So what we've done is we've made 3 different listings for our property. We have Ponderosa Paradise 1, which is the top floor and is the larger of the 2 units, and includes even a game room, which has been pretty cool. And then there's Ponderosa Paradise 2, which is a downstairs studio, and it includes its own kitchen, its own bathroom, has its own bedroom, or bedroom area, I should say. And then we've created a 3rd listing, which is Ponderosa Paradise 1 and 2. And that is both listings together. So what this allows us to do is capture a larger audience. We're able to capture people that are looking for just a quick honeymoon, or we're able to capture larger parties. Even smaller parties, maybe it's a small family and they have 2 kids and they want to just rent the upstairs unit. So we're able to be very versatile and capture as large of an audience as you possibly can by listing it this way. So another thing to point out is due to the location of our Airbnb, being that it's mostly for people that are doing weekend getaways or short vacations away from their hometown and they're driving to this location, we're getting reservations that are typically made a couple weeks to maybe a month in advance. Sometimes we get some that are a little bit further than that, but besides the point. We are likely to see our August still fill up. Right now we only have 2 reservations, and if it's anything like it has been in July, which in July alone will gross about $5,500, we'll likely see a similar month, maybe even better in August. So these numbers that you see here will likely go up. Guestie is also not accounting for any off-platform bookings revenue, which we did actually have an off-platform booking through a family friend, and we'll gross in total $754. But after the cleaning fees are taken out, that'll be an additional $474 added into our accommodation fee, as you can see on Guestie. I also suspect after August is said and done that we'll be approximately at $40,777.63 in total revenue that we take home from Airbnb and VRBO together. Meaning, on average, we will have taken home a little under $3,400 every single month since listing our home on Airbnb and VRBO. Now, with our mortgage and other expenses such as insurance and utilities and various other expenses that we have, such as supplies, we're expecting that we're at about $2,500 a month in expenses. So that means our true profit every single month is $900. Overall, considering that my family and I have visited our property every single month as a vacation, sometimes these vacations can last a weekend or they can last a full-on week, we have been able to be paid $900 a month to take a vacation every single month. Not to mention, we're also getting our debt buy down, and we're paying down and adding equity into our property every single month while being paid and taking free vacations. So the big question, would I recommend investing in your own Airbnb? The short answer is yeah, I probably would. Although it's not for the faint of heart. You know, there's a significant amount of work that goes into getting your property up and running, from sourcing the furniture, assembling it, fixing up the property if it needs any fixing up, to managing it on a monthly basis, doing all the customer communication, making sure things aren't broken, and that you have the correct technology to manage it properly. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And for me personally, I bought this property as co-ownership with my parents. And with doing it without them, I don't know if I would have wanted to do it or if I even could do it. You know, we have our own individual skill sets. For me, myself, I'm more the technology person. I handle getting our systems set up, making sure we have the correct systems in place for it to operate smoothly. You know, we're doing communication properly, and I'm handling that daily communication. And my parents are more the, you know, handymen essentially, and they're able to fix things and go there to get the proper supplies and stuff like that. So we make overall a great team, and I highly recommend that if you're going to go into purchasing a short-term rental, that you have a team that you can rely on and you can split up some of the responsibilities with. That way you can, you know, kind of rely on the strengths and weaknesses of each person in your team. But the good news is, if you follow the advice that I've laid down in this video and you've made it through the end of this video without your head completely spinning, the chances are pretty likely that you'll be able to start your Airbnb business and have it be extremely successful and be able to pan out the way that you were always hoping it would. And lastly, I would like to remind people that I do have Airbnb referral links. So if you are thinking about becoming an Airbnb host, consider signing up through my link. It's completely free to you, and it'll allow me to see your first listing, see the pictures that you're uploading, and just give you my general feedback, you know, after having run my own Airbnb for a year. So I'd love to do that. If you have comments, questions, or suggestions on other video ideas that you would like to see from me, whether it's Airbnb or just business tips in general, then I will be happy to make those, and you'll be seeing a lot more from me soon. All right, until next time. Big rock. Big rock. Gorgeous. Really nice bathroom, and then this opens up to the deck.